We're going to get ready to get started with our final session for the day. And that is Counter 5, Lessons Learned and New Insights Achieved. The presenter is Jill Emery with Collection Development and Management. Oh, pardon me, she's the Collection Development and Management Librarian at Portland State University. And just a reminder that we have the biographies of our speakers on the schedule. And again, we'll be using the Zoom Q&A for questions during the session today. And afterwards, we would love you to come participate in our online discussion forum. It's located on the NASIG website with additional questions or comments. Well, I'll go ahead and pass it over then to Jill. Just a reminder, thanking our sponsors.
For those of you that are not totally familiar with Counter, Counter is an organization that works to try to normalize usage data across content providers for librarians and working with platform providers and publishers to do this. Right now, the majority of the providers that many academic librarians work with are readily available in Release 5 for the data construction. However, some content providers and publishers and platform providers are not. Counter encourages the use of the most recent release, but we don't dictate that necessarily to the communities that we work with. And it is reliant upon librarians to speak up and to encourage the content providers to use the most recent release of Counter in order for you to get the same data from all the places that you might be getting content from. As noted, I'm the Collection Development and Management Librarian at Portland State University in Oregon, and I'm also on the Counter Executive Board. So there are a number of improvements that occurred with Release 5. These are the three main ones that we're going to cover in this talk today. But I also want to point out that one of the greatest advantages of Release 5 is that that we don't have to recreate a new release in its totality going forward. What we can do now from this point forward is make incremental changes as needed. So sort of tweaks to the data and the data construction as questions and issues arise from the communities that we work with. These are the improvements that we're going to talk about today in this presentation, but there is incremental change that's going to happen with Release 5 over the next subsequent years. And these tweaks and these changes we're doing on sort of a 6-month cycle. So publishers and content providers and platform providers have the ability to really test them out and put them into place before we make a big announcement about them coming out. So I just wanted to let people know that that's one of the advantages we see with Release 5. The ability to see both total and unique downloads is really important, and this came to us as a question from the community, from the library community, on how to disambiguate the usage between what is the total kind of unique title usage and what is the total HTML and PDF combined usage. So we've done this by creating these two different reporting types, total item requests and unique item requests. So let's take a look at the metrics for journal usage to kind of talk through this and show how this works. So here's a journal platform and an article display from the Royal Society. And as you can see here, there are 3 different places where you can click as a user. You can click on the abstract, look at the abstract. You could click on the full text and get the HTML view, or you could click PDF and download that content. In release 4, how this was reported or how this looked is there would be one use for HTML, one use for PDF, and the reporting period total would then be 2, ignoring the abstract view. But sometimes the abstract view and using the abstract is really important to a researcher to determine whether the content is really needed or not. So it seemed that we needed to account for the ability to capture that count as well. So in release 5, with the total item investigations, what that gives you now is when there's been a click on any of the content on that article or journal page, as well as what the unique item investigation would be. In this case, the unique item investigation is the article in itself. The total item requests, if somebody looked at the HTML and looked at the PDF, would be both of those. But, and again, overall, the unique item request is just this one single article within the journal platform. Counter is really recommending using the unique item request as the metric for calculating cost per use. That said, it's understood that every individual institution and organization might want to determine what they're counting for cost per use differently. It might be that you want to count the unique investigations, or you might want to count the total investigations of an article to calculate your cost per use. And it's really contingent, I think, for an organization to sit down and discuss as a group what it is they want to count and how they want to count it. And to also have that conversation then with any of the consortia that you're involved in, so that you make sure that you are counting the same things and that you're looking at the same number set across all the libraries you might want to be comparing yourself with or counting with. And as noted, the total item requests can be used to look sort of at trends across time. And give you a sense of what that is in regards to just looking at unique item requests, which would give you a year count. One of the other things that Counter has really worked on is excluding gold open access, because again, this is something we heard a lot from the community. How do we know how much of the usage on any given journal report is OA and how much of it is subscribed or controlled content? So what we did was we created a access type that is spelled out in the item reports, and controlled means that the usage is behind a paywall, or the content is behind a paywall that's being counted. And if it says OA Gold, then that is the content that is open access on that site that has been used. And we wanted to make this delineation to help people get a clearer sense of this breakdown. It's particularly useful with the hybrid journals where an author might have paid an APC to have access to that article within a journal that a library might be subscribed to. And that APC or article processing charge could have been paid for by the author, it could have been paid for by another area in the institution or by a funding agency. And only you kind of know what that breakdown might be for your institution. But we wanted to be able to get to what of your subscribed journals is the full usage done without open access. And so in the report, the access type looks as it's displayed here and says that whether it's controlled or whether it's gold OA or OA gold. In the standard views or the main master reports, like the TRJR1 report, it automatically excludes all gold and open access content. So some publishers' statistics dashboards allow you to just click on the TRJR1 report and get you that information readily available. But it is good to note that that's going to be presented to you without any gold open access. And if you want to account for that, you're going to have to go into the item report in order to see the two different access types that are being provided. Again, the TRJR1 is seen as very useful for calculating cost per use because it does that exclusion for you. And so you are purely looking at your usage up against your subscription cost. Because this is new with release 5 and didn't exist in release 4, you are going to see something of a downturn in statistics and in the numbers with your release 5 data for the TRJR1 report. The other area that we wanted to talk about and take a look at is the metrics used for books. Again, one of the community concerns was some publishers provide access to ebooks at chapter or section levels, and others provide it just as a single total book download. And are we really accounting for the same things between the two differences? And how can we get at looking at the same counts regardless of what the platform is? So in order to handle this, we came up with what's referred to as the unique title metric. It only applies to books. It doesn't apply to journal usage. So we have a total item request, unique item request, and unique title request with ebooks. And as noted here, the unique title request will probably be what should be used for calculating cost per use across books and across book packages. So here's an example of a book and the different areas where you can click and gain access to different aspects of this book. In this case, you can download the entire book PDF. You can learn about the proceedings in which this book exists. You can click on a single title or do a PDF download, a single chapter, and click the PDF download for that chapter. Or you can click the PDF of different chapters and look at them within the same book. So in this case, in release 5, the total item investigations for this page would be 5. Which is from the book, the about the proceedings, and then the two chapter PDF downloads, and then the heading download as well. The unique item investigations is just 3, which would be about the proceedings and then the 2 chapters. No, I take that back, sorry. It's download of the book or the 2 chapters would make up that 3. The total item requests would be download the book PDF, about the proceedings, and the 2 chapters. But overall, the unique title investigations for this entity and the unique title requests is just 1 because it's just 1 book. And again, libraries and institutions look at these statistics differently. We know that for course assignments and class assignments, a faculty member may be only assigning a chapter or a section of a book for someone to read. So maybe you do want to count then the total item requests or the unique item requests in your cost per use as opposed to the unique title requests. But in order to provide the fairest comparison across all books on all platforms, Counter recommends the unique title requests. This column just basically spells this out a little bit further. for cases where there's a single platform with a single PDF and things aren't broken out by chapters or by sections within that. And so if somebody were to go there and utilize that, you would have a total item request of 1, a unique item request of 1, and a unique title request of 1 represented in your usage report. For platform B, though, which is broken out by chapters or sections, you're going to see some different numbers. In this case, you will see how many times a chapter was used in the total item requests, as well as in the unique item requests. But overall, in the unique title request, you're still only going to see the 1 use because it's all happening within 1 title or 1 book. So again, we recommend that the unique title request be the ideal metric for calculating the cost per use. And then when we're looking at release 4 reports, using the total item request to look at the trends that might have happened over time with delivery of a content provider that gives chapters, and looking at unique title requests with release 4 when looking at those that provide just a single file for download. So we've really tried in release 5 to provide metrics that allowed for more granularity of understanding of statistics, and that allow you to think about the use of material in different ways. And look at item investigations and item requests in these ways that allow you to analyze and consider your usage in ways that maybe you weren't doing previously or had the ability to do because of the way release 4 was constructed. So if a user were to look at the summary of a book and then decide not to request it, what would happen? In those cases, you would have a total item investigation of 1, but you would have an item request of 0 because nothing was downloaded or utilized beyond just looking at the page. And this was a big problem that a number of people pointed out with release 4 usage and how it was being reported. So I also wanted to cover what else there is to look at and to consider with Counter 5, because as we've been working with Counter 5 at the executive board level and the technical advisory group level, we've been able to come up with different things that we're considering and thinking about that we think the community might be interested in. First and foremost, EBSCO Information Services has created the R5 Harvester, which is an MS Access tool that allows small to medium-sized consortia to be able to readily gather their counter reports for their affiliated libraries and harvest them simultaneously together and look at those as a group, which is really fantastic. We've been working with others to try to develop a consortial reporting tool, which is still in development. But in the meantime, this is a good, quick way for some of the smaller consortia to have access to usage across multiple libraries. We also have an update with COVID-19. As many of you know, many publishers and content providers removed the paywall from some or all of their content for most of the spring, starting in March usually and going at least through May, if not June. We've given a list here of Skelk's list of many of the players who did this. What we recognize is that you could see a downturn in usage when you look at your 2020 stats, because people were able to just go to the platform and immediately gain access to this content, and they might not have been coming through your proxy, they might not have been coming through your portals to gain access. And so it will seem potentially like there's a drop-off in some of your usage. So you might want to make some notation of that and consider that when you do your evaluation of your 2020 usage data, because it could seem a little off in comparison to 2019 and previous years. I also want to highlight our Counter Foundation classes. These are extremely well done. They are videos available on our YouTube channel that I highly recommend people subscribing to. Each class plays for around 10 to 15 minutes, and it really goes in depth on the different reports and the different metrics, and kind of helps you get a really good deep dive. So if you're working with these statistics in any way, I think this is a good place to start to really gain the deepest understanding of how you can look at the metrics and how the metrics can work for you. We've also begun creating a manual for librarians, and we have Module 1 available at this point. And Module 1 focuses on ebooks and book usage, and you can download and look through that at this point. We're in the editing phases of Module 2, so it'll be forthcoming in this summer. And the focus of Module 2 will be on journal metrics. And so we encourage people to check that out as well. And that's the end of my presentation. So I'm willing to open it up to the Q&A now.
Okay, Jill, it looks like you've got a comment, and there's a specific question here regarding a unique item request about a person is online for a long time and then clicks on the same item again. Is it count and it's counted again? Is that something that's corrected?
That is corrected in release 5. Now, if they close down their browser or go away from the website, like move off of the website and redirect somewhere else and then come back to it and click the same thing, it will get counted twice, because there's no way for us to account for that. But if they have stayed on the same page and they count twice within the same session, it should not count twice, it should only count once.
Great, thank you. There's also a comment someone made. She said, I used to be able to easily add the total number of article downloads, but now I can't because they list both unique and total, as you mentioned.
Yeah. So we do have one of our foundation classes on sorting the reports so that you can then readily count up those figures. So I recommend looking at the foundation class YouTube presentation that walks through that.
Yeah, those look great. So a question just came in. If you could go over again what EBSCO is offering to harvest the counter stats for consortia libraries.
Okay, it's called the R5 Harvester, and it is a MS Access tool that I think we haven't tried to use it at my institution or within my consortia, so I'm not entirely sure the extent of how exactly it works. I would recommend actually getting in touch with EBSCO or an EBSCO representative for further information on the exact process of how the access tool works.
Great, thank you. And here's a question about any interesting use of the Counter 5 data that you may have seen, something that has surprised you. Maybe you could elaborate.
So I will admit we're just in the stage of gathering our annual usage stats and looking at them at my institution at Portland State. I will say, you know, it has been surprising to see the amount of open access use that occurs and how that for certain titles and certain journal platforms that really impacts the overall usage of the content.
Okay, thanks. And another question, are there special issues with mobile device usage?
That's on our platform report. And to be honest, it's not a report that I've looked at very closely at this point. So I'm not able to respond directly to that question.
Sure, I'm sure that'll come up,
Yeah.
up soon for you. And another question about foundation classes. Someone asks, is there a good foundation class using Excel, the pivot tables?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Yes, there is. I believe there is one. And if there isn't, the other thing to do is just email us at Counter. You can either email Lorraine Estelle, and it's, I believe, Lorraine, LORRAINE .Estelle, ESTELLE at counter.org, at projectcounter.org. And we will put somebody on making one. We are really good about co-opting and getting others to help us create the foundation classes at this point.
Nice. And remember, any questions that aren't addressed, or if people have more, you can, the attendees can come to the forum and be able to ask them then. But we have another one here. Someone asks if you have to be an EBSCO library to use the harvester.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Jill, could you go back a slide? I think you had a tiny URL.
Ah.
Yes. Yes. Here we go.
Oh, thank you. That's great. And let's see. Oh, they're just rolling in here. So I hope it helps for me to read them. I don't know if you wanted to look as well, but I'm happy.
No, that's fine. It's good for you to read them.
Good. So another question, could exclusion of open access journals be a disincentive to aggregators to grow the number of open access journals in the package or collection? Isn't this a valuable service to integrate open access with subscribed materials?
It is an advantage, I think, for aggregators to include it. I think it then becomes contingent on the library to really determine how it is they want to evaluate an aggregator, and do they still want to evaluate them in the same way they did previously. Now, in what I was showing was a journal platform, the Royal Society, and the report that showed the differentiation between the two was, again, a journal platform between the controlled access and the gold OA access. I'm trying to think on the database report, because in most cases an aggregator would be a database report and not at least at my institution, we don't look at the TR/JR report for aggregators. We look at the database report, which gives different count information, not looking specifically at titles. So I think it really depends on what you choose to evaluate when it comes to aggregators at your institution as to how much of an impact that's going to have.
And just trying to, I'm jumping around with the questions to try and keep them together. Someone had commented that I think having open access on a separate report helps to highlight them as open access. Previously, they were all lumped together and I had to track them down and figure out what was subscription and what was open access. So thank you.
Yay.
Yay. And while there's a couple more, and someone asked, maybe you could go back a couple slides about the foundation classes. Someone asked if you could show that again. Maybe that's easy to do while we're looking.
Here we go.
Okay. And another question. Oh, and someone else commented, thanks attendees for helping out here. Someone said that anyone can access a EBSCO created tool, the R5 harvester that you mentioned.
Great. Yeah, so, I thought that was the case, but I didn't want to.
Yeah, no, this is great. So let's see, another question. Those sites using the Adaphon, I've never known how to pronounce that.
Adaphon.
Adaphon, thank you. I've always read it, never had to say it. Insights link are terrific, but some publishers are using their own different sites. Most of these are hard to use. Is there any way to get everyone on board with the same site?
No. Unfortunately not. Like, different content providers and different publishers they've had to work quite a bit to enable Release 5. And we recognize this from the executive board and the technical advisory group. And it's how things interplay or interact with those providers within their own content environments. Some publishers and content providers use third parties. They use Scholarly IQ, for instance, or they use MPS as a platform to show their usage overall. And I think Scholarly IQ and MPS have different views that a publisher can, or a content provider can utilize. But not everybody, and especially some of our smaller society publishers, they can't afford the usage platforms in the same way that larger kind of commercial scholarly publishers can. So it's kind of understood that there's that the provider is doing the best job possible to make these reports available, but it's just not possible to even advocate, I think, from a librarian standpoint, that everyone look and be exactly the same, just because it all depends on how they're able to extract the data from their content platforms and then have it display. And that's going to vary from place to place.
Thank you. Another question, in the report that includes open access and controlled access, is each title identified as being open access or controlled?
So that is an item report. So it's not each title, it's actually each article, if I remember correctly. Because of the hybrid journal situation. So you could have one journal that has a number of the articles are paywalled and 3 of the articles are open access. So it's done at the more discrete article level as opposed to the journal level.
Okay, great, thanks. If they want to follow up with that, we'll let them. And here's a comment if you want to speak to it. Someone used VLOOKUP functions for cost use analysis for many years. That is probably the most technically challenging aspect of analyzing stats on my own.
I would agree.
Yeah, there you go. So the one I kind of left for last, it was the first question, but quite a big one, and there's been some help. Someone gave some information from the Project Counter site, but someone asked if there's recommended guidelines for how to report usage, especially in terms of dealing with some providers giving usage in Counter 4, while others are providing Counter 5. So that's a nice closer for you, right?
Yeah.
The question we are all dealing with.
In our quick guide, we do kind of have a chart that shows comparable. We do recognize that not everybody has moved to release 5 at this point. And so unfortunately, you know, we don't have specifically, other than the quick guide chart, I think at this point, a whole translation between release 4 and release 5.
Mm-hmm. And that may be a good conversation people can bring up in the forum, yeah. I think, because it is something a lot of us are dealing with.
Yeah.
So that was the last question. What I'll do is, I think that's pretty much where we are. If you want to say anything else, I'm going to bring up the screens with our sponsors, which since this is the last session of the day, and I did neglect to get that up during the introduction. But I want to thank you, Jill, so much for your presentation. A lot of really good information there, and a reminder to everyone that this recording will be posted to our YouTube channel, and Jill will be monitoring, and her partner presenter, whose name I just lost. Jill, you can remind me.
Lorraine Estelle.
You had mentioned her, thank you. They'll both be monitoring the forum through June for any questions that weren't covered. And we hope you'll join us again tomorrow for more sessions. And you'll find all the information you need on our website. Thanks so much to everyone for coming. And go ahead.
I do have one last thing I want to, we want to thank NASIG for being members of Project Counter and supporting the work that we do.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Jill, did you have a URL for the quick guide that was mentioned? And if that's in your presentation, that will be fine.
Yeah, if you go to the foundation,
the tiny URL for the foundation classes?
Yes. Actually, the tiny URL for the foundation might take you to YouTube. I think on the manual, the link on the manual page.
If you want to come back to that, you can take the screen back.
Yeah. Hold on. Oh. Let's see. So not this one. Are you seeing here?
There we go.
The link for the manual, I believe, is the quick guide as well.
And people hopefully also posted them into chat, and then I reposted to everyone. So hopefully the person who was wanting it can find it now.
Okay.
And just to close, lots of thanks to you, Jill, on the Q&A if you didn't see it.
Oh, good. Yay.
Yeah. Great.
Thanks, everyone.
So get those sponsors back up there. And if, Wendy, you want to mention anything else? I'll leave it with anyone.
No, I think we're just looking forward to seeing you tomorrow for the last day.
Exactly. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.